He's in himself in a position to be witness. That's what he's doing what he is. Bring the jury.
Yours, President, Your Honor.
Okay.
Judge, because of our slow morning, we're going to have to call a witness out of order because of a flight arrangement. So some of this will be conditionally relevant depending on other witnesses.
All right.
I believe that would get.
Statement called Brian Childs.
You swear that the testimony you shall give the court and the jury in the trial of this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Could you please state your first and last name and spell your last name loudly, please?
My name is Brian Childs, Chiles.
Good afternoon, Mr. Childs.
Good afternoon.
Could you please tell our jury how old you are
I am 41.
and where are you employed?
I'm employed at Taser International.
And how long have you been employed by Taser International?
I've been at Taser just over 11 years.
What is your current job and title at Taser International?
Current title is Technical Compliance Manager.
And you've been doing that, I believe, since 2014, you said?
Yes.
What's a technical compliance manager?
I am in charge of compliance with any technical regulations that we have to follow. We're doing more wireless technology in our products, so we have to comply with FCC standards and European standards, so I'm the one in charge of making sure we do that.
And before that, it looks like 2013, 2014, you were a technical forensic specialist. What is that?
And actually, my job as the technical compliance manager still encompasses the technical forensic specialist, but in that portion of my job, I do download analysis of our weapons and cameras for customers or their attorneys in cases where they're used out in the field to give a summary of what happened, if there's anything in the logs of the weapon that can tell more of the story.
Okay. And then before that, between 2006 and 2014, it looked like you were a validation test manager and supervisor. What were you doing
Validation test is testing product to verify that it does what it's supposed to do, and also durable enough for our customers to use. So we would do software, electrical, environmental, mechanical testing, drop test, rain test, stuff like that. Just make sure the product does what it's supposed to and that it works within spec.
Okay, and then before that, 2005 and 2006, you were a research and development technician, is that correct?
That's correct.
And what did you do then?
Then I worked in the research and development lab, helping engineers test and prototype and build things.
So you kind of worked your way up?
Yes.
Since you've been at Taser International, is that correct?
Yes.
What was your background before going to Taser?
Before going to Taser, I worked at a company called MGE UPS Systems. We made uninterruptible power supplies, and I was a test engineer there.
And I believe you're also a calibration and repair technician too, correct?
Yes, I started my career as calibration and repair.
So you pretty much spent your entire career in electronics?
Yes.
Now, as part of your training at Taser International, have you been a certified Taser instructor?
Yes, when I started in 2005, I took the instructor course.
Okay. And I believe you also, do you have any role in training guidelines for Taser certification?
Yes, the training staff comes up with our training program, but I help review their material to verify accuracy. Doing testing on the product so much, you become an expert in the product, so I help them come up with their material or double check what they come up with.
And does your expertise with Taser include the operation and data recording of the Taser?
Yes.
How about downloading and interpretation of the data from a Taser?
Yes.
And how about data recovery from Taser?
Yes.
How many cases have you handled in the forensic fields, specialist field, since you've been in Taser?
Cases, it's in the 200s.
Okay, and have you ever been qualified as an expert witness in the areas of Taser operation, data recording, data downloading, and interpretation?
Yes, I have.
On how many occasions and what courts, sir?
I've testified in 9 trials now, from California, Louisiana, Philadelphia, North Carolina, Virginia. I think that's the list.
Your Honor, we would offer Mr. Childs as an expert in the field of Taser operation, data recording, data downloading, and interpretation.
All right, says the defense.
Roll call.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if scientific, technical, or specialized knowledge will assist you or with some fact and issue or understanding the evidence, our rules of evidence provide that a witness who, by virtue of his or her education, training, or experience has become an expert in such a field, then that witness may offer opinions if it's based and in accordance with our other rules. They may offer opinions in instances where lay witnesses cannot, at least not supposed to. You may proceed. This witness is an expert in the field that's the solicitor stated.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Childs, let's talk a little bit about the operation of the Taser. In your report, you referred to a Taser as a CEW. What is that?
CEW, it's a conducted electrical weapon. Everybody calls it a taser, but it's kind of like grabbing a Kleenex. Taser is the name brand, but the technical term is conducted electrical weapon.
And is a Taser by definition a non-lethal weapon?
Yes.
What is the purpose of a Taser?
The overall purpose of a taser is to stop a subject, to stop their actions and get control of them.
Okay. And it does that by creating what?
It uses electricity. It uses pulses of electricity. These pulses generated by the weapon mimic the brain waves to talk to the muscles. And so when properly attached to the body, it will cause the muscles to lock up. We call this neuromuscular incapacitation. And it will cause the muscles to contract.
Okay. And is Prior to coming in here, were you requested by our office to prepare a little presentation on Taser 101, on how that
Yes.
operates?
Yes,
And you prepared a PowerPoint presentation in response to that?
that's correct.
And is that PowerPoint presentation contained on State's Exhibit number 13?
Yes,
And how do you know that, sir?
I initialed it.
Okay, and watched it too, correct?
Yes.
I would like to put up the, you put up the first slide?
You offer that exhibit and the other.
Oh, sorry, I thought I did, Your Honor. We would offer State 13 in the evidence, I believe, that, Judge. Is that right? That is correct.
It's admitted.
My apologies. Success. You can use that. You can use this to advance, or left and right to advance.
Okay. All right, so just give a basic Taser 101. Most people don't know a whole lot about tasers. So this is a model X26 CEW. We have a few different models of tasers. The one used in this case was X26. Start with basic anatomy. So it is operated off a battery. We call it a DPM for digital power magazine. That inserts into here. The safety is right there. CID is central information display. Everything has an acronym. So the central information display just gives the user the battery percentage, or if there's an error, it'll show a code. This is the trigger used to deploy the weapon. Each weapon has a LED flashlight and a laser sight. The laser sight gives an indication when pointing the weapon where in the general direction the top dart will go. There's two darts that come out of the weapon. You have the top dart and bottom dart. So this laser sight is pointing to approximately where that top dart is going to go. There was talk before about the aphids, that's anti-felon identification tags. So this is an example of the aphids. The blast doors, we talked about the green blast door, that indicates that this is a 25-foot cartridge. We also have a 21-foot cartridge, a 15-foot cartridge, and they have different colored blast doors. This cartridge is removable, this circular part. If you take your thumbs and press in those tabs, you can remove the cartridge. And on the front of the weapon, like behind the cartridge, there's also electrodes. So you can see a little piece of metal here and metal here. Those are electrodes that can be used for drive stun. There was some talk about drive stun earlier as well. So I can talk a little more on that. Basic operation, so the trigger, when the weapon is armed and the trigger is pulled, it automatically does a 5-second cycle. By cycle, what happens is when the trigger is pulled, the weapon starts pulsing. It pulses up to 50,000 volts. The purpose for 50,000 volts is to be able to create an arc that can jump electricity, jump through the air. It creates that pulse 19 times per second. So you have a fast 19 pulses per second repetition rate. At any time during the cycle, if the safety is put down, that will turn the weapon off and stop the cycle. Also, after 5 seconds, it will automatically stop the cycle. Also, on the other hand, if someone wants for it to go beyond 5 seconds, if the trigger is held in, then it will continue past the 5-second cycle until the trigger is let go of, or the battery dies, whichever happens first. Safety. Safety is ambidextrous, so right hand or left hand. Typically with the thumb, it is flipped up to turn the weapon on. That is to arm the weapon, so flipping it up doesn't start the activation. You have to pull the trigger, but it turns on the electronics, gets it ready to go. And then safety down, turns it off. The Taser cartridge. Anatomy in the cartridge, you have the darts here, and then the aphid tags are under here. In the center, we have, this is called an ignition pin. How the cartridge goes off is when you pull the trigger, it creates the first pulse. That arc will go into the ignition pin. So the first arc, there's electrodes right here. One will go into this dart and hit this. This is a gas capsule, contains compressed nitrogen. On this side, the other end of the arc will go into here, and this is a primer, similar to a shotgun shell primer. The electricity ignites the primer, creates pressure, and pushes this gas capsule into this puncture pin. This is hollow in the middle, so the compressed nitrogen exits through here, through these channels, launches darts up. The aphids, we talked about, there's some micro print on there. They're small, they're like a hole punch paper, and they contain the serial number of the cartridge. So if cartridges, or if a taser is used in a robbery or something, we can track who the cartridge was shipped to. They asked me, I don't know how to get this to start. This is a slow motion deployment of a taser. This is credit to the slow-mo guys on YouTube. So there goes the darts start coming out, and you can see the aphid tags spread out. On a typical deployment, the aphid tags can go up to about 10 feet away from the user forward. So they'll spread out, and then you can see the wires unwinding as it comes out. And then for sound, I was asked to produce what the taser sounds like. This is just this next one, this is a deployment that I did in the range. Now there's two sounds that the taser makes when deployed. One is an arcing sound, which is a loud kind of clapping sound. And then there's also when the taser is conducting electricity, it goes quiet. Now, just because it's quiet doesn't mean that it's conducting through a target. There is a case, like in this case, I'm shooting a phone target, which is not conductive, but you're going to hear it go quiet, and that's because the wires come down, and it's called capacitive coupling. The energy of the energy, it's you have the two wires, they act like a capacitor, which stores energy. So it takes the energy from the pulse, stores it, and then releases it. So you don't have the arcing of the weapon anymore, so it goes quieter. that case, you got to hear a little bit of the loud and a little bit of the quiet. So, and that's it.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about neuromuscular incapacitation. What causes that? And how is that affected by probe location, I guess I should say?
Okay, so the reason we have a cartridge on the Taser is that you have to attach the electricity in two spots. You have the plus and the minus in electricity. You have to have both of those touch in the body in order to affect the muscles. What causes the effect is the amount of muscle mass that's in between the probes. So when you got both probes in, the amount of muscle mass between those probes will affect how much NMI you receive. There was some talk earlier about NMI before. The NMI is not just on or off. You have different levels of NMI. So if the user is close to someone and they deploy a Taser, one thing I didn't mention before, the probes, the top probe comes out straight, the bottom probe comes out at an 8-degree angle downward. So with that, the further away you are from the subject when you deploy, the further spread between the probes you have. That's intentional so that they can back off, get distance, and get more spread. So if you're close, you're not going to have as much NMI. You might get localized NMI, but you need about 9 to 12 inches between the probes in a good location with a lot of muscle mass in order to get full NMI lockup.
So if the probes are close together, basically you're just getting an arc between the two probes.
Yeah, you get pain. Well, it'll arc through the tissue, through the skin, not between the probes, but it mostly you get pain.
Right. Do the probes actually have to enter the body to work?
No, that's the whole purpose of 50,000 volts, is to be able to have the electricity jump through the air.
And 50,000 volts sounds like a lot of volts. Why is this not a lethal weapon?
Because voltage has nothing to do with safety. Voltage alone is not dangerous. It's electric current, which is what is dangerous. Anytime in the winter you walk across the carpet, when you touch a doorknob and you get zapped, that's 40, 50, 60,000 volts right there. Not dangerous at all because there's hardly any current behind it.
Okay, so you've talked about the operation of the Taser in the probe and barb mode. How about drive stun? What is drive stun?
Drive stun, so we call it a mode, but it's different methods of using the weapon. So we have probe mode, which is probe mode, you have a cartridge and you're deploying a cartridge at someone. You can also use it in drive stun mode, which is either with the cartridge removed, you take the cartridge off, and you can go and touch someone with it and it causes pain. There's another situation, say if someone deployed a cartridge but one of the darts missed. Then you only have the plus connected, for example. You can take the weapon and go and touch them with the weapon and complete the circuit. And so that's a drive stun, but that would cause NMI based on how much spread you have between the electrodes.
Between where the bar was and where the
Exactly.
Taser was actually
Exactly.
placed. But if the Taser has no cartridge, it can only operate in what mode?
Drive stun.
And drive stun, does it or does it not cause neuromuscular incapacitation?
It does not.
What does it cause?
It causes pain.
Do you recall when you were first contacted regarding this particular case and by whom?
I was contacted by Agent Angela Peterson with SLED.
Okay. And what did Ms. Peterson want you to do?
They wanted to know more about the Taser, how it works, and also asked me to do an analysis on the weapon.
And what type of analysis?
I was asked to do a full analysis. I do two types of analysis. I can do a data analysis where I only look at the download, and then we do a full analysis where we do that and test the weapon for functionality.
Okay, and the full entails what again?
Data download, and also analysis of that download, and then also an electrical test and inspection.
And do you recall when you received Taser in this case?
Yes, it was September 11th, 2015.
Mr. Childs, I hand you what's been marked as exhibit number 49 for identification. Ask if you recognize that item.
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
This is the weapon that I did the analysis on,
Okay. And how do you know that?
by the serial number.
Now, do you recall when you performed your analysis of that particular Taser?
It was October 6th, 2015.
And that was in Scottsdale, Arizona?
Yes.
And let's start with the download analysis. Were you able to download the activation logs from State's Exhibit number 49?
Yes, I was.
And could you tell our jury what an activation log is?
So inside the weapon, there is a memory chip on the circuit board, and every time the weapon is activated or the clock is synchronized, we record that information into the log. We have software that we can connect over USB and extract that log.
And based upon your download of the activation log, were you able to determine whether or not the Taser had been activated on April 4th of 2015?
Yes, we were.
On how many occasions?
It was activated 7 times on April 4th.
Okay, and one was around what time, and the remainder around what time?
The first activation was 7:17 in the morning, and the rest of the activations were at 9:52 to 9:53 in the morning.
Okay. Now, so you had one at about 7:17 in the morning. What was the duration of that one?
That one was 2 seconds.
And what does that generally indicate to you?
Generally indicates what we call a spark test. We urge agencies to, before you go on shift, to pull the cartridge out, fire it for a short period of time, and then put the cartridge back in. Just test the weapon before you go on shift.
Okay. And then there were 6 activations between 9:52 and 9:53. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Are you able to determine from the activation log whether or not a Taser is activated in barred mode or drive step?
No, you cannot. There's no distinction.
And those 6 activations between those times, were those all 5-second bursts?
Yes, they were all 5 seconds.
Were you able, as a part of your analysis, to determine whether the internal clock on the Taser State's Exhibit number 49 was accurate?
Yes, we were able to verify the clock.
And what did you determine? Was it accurate?
It had some drift.
And what do you mean by drift?
So every clock has some type of drift. For instance, daylight savings, you go throughout the house and synchronize all your clocks because some of them are running fast, some are running slow. Every clock has some type of drift to it. So the clock in the Taser, it's the same thing. It can drift forward, it can drift backward. I mentioned in the activation log, when the clock is synchronized, we record the old time and the new time so we can tell how far the clock had drifted.
Okay. And I believe in your report you stated that it's not uncommon for a Taser to either get up to 4 minutes fast or slow in a given month. Is that correct?
Yeah, previous studies have shown up to plus minus 4 minutes per month.
And how are Tasers synced?
Over USB to the computer.
Okay. Do you have to provide software for that?
Yes, we have a proprietary software, same software that you do the download of the weapon with. It will also synchronize the time to the clock PC, or if you're on our new evidence.com, it'll sync it to the network time.
And based upon your analysis of the activation log, were you able to calculate the time drift associated with this particular Taser State's Exhibit number 49?
Yes, I was.
And what was the final figure you came up with?
The final figure was 15 minutes and 28 seconds running fast.
Okay, I think it was 28.5 seconds.
Yeah, 15 minutes, 28.5 seconds.
Which you rounded it up to 15 minutes, 29 seconds, correct?
That's correct.
Could you kind of explain in general terms how you arrived at that figure?
So using the data in the activation log, I was able to tell, first, after the incident in question, I believe it was 4 days after the clock was synchronized. So there we had our clock drift recorded. However, in those 4 days, the clock had drifted an unknown amount. So we went back to the last time the clock was synchronized before the incident.
And when was that?
That was, 1 second. December 18th, 2012.
So it's been a long time since the clock on.
It had been 27 and a half months.
Okay.
So I took that timestamp of when the clock was synchronized, the amount of days that had passed up to the time that it was synchronized again. That was a total, $842 days. We take that and divide the clock was synchronized on April 9th, which was, I said 4 days before, I believe it was 5 days. We took the amount of clock drift on that date, divide it by how many days it had been, and we come up with 1.1 seconds per day of drift. Now, there are some factors that can affect that, but in general, the clock should continue its drift on an average. So taking that, we could assume in those 5 days since the incident to the synchronization that the clock would have drifted 5.55 seconds, which I just called 5.5 seconds. So subtracted that from the 15 minutes and 34 seconds that were recorded. That's how we came up with 15 minutes, 28.5 seconds.
Okay. And so basically, this changed the 5 or 6 deployments between 9:51 and 9:53 to be in between 9:36 and 9:37.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
And did you provide Ms. Peterson a letter setting forth those adjusted times on October 26th of 2015?
Yes, I did.
I had you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 14. Ask if you recognize that letter.
Yes, I do.
Okay, that's the letter that you wrote to Agent Peterson setting forth the time drift regarding the specific tension, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Your Honor, I would offer this, I believe, without objection. Without it.
Submitted without objection.
Now, that's an estimation, correct? Those times you came up with?
Yeah, there's going to be some error in there inherent.
And that is because time drift is affected by what kind of factor?
The clock drift can be affected by the voltage on the battery, but the most prevalent factor is environmental conditions. If you have extreme hot or cold, that can slow down or speed up the drift.
Okay. And as part of your analysis in the case, did you have the occasion to review an audio file which was taken from the video shot in this case by Mr. Santana?
Yes.
It appears to have a clicking sound in the beginning.
Yes.
In your opinion, what does that sound?
It sounded like a conducted electrical weapon arcing.
Okay. And if that sound was a conducted electrical weapon arcing, and it meant that your final figures may have been 2 to 3 seconds off, would that scratch?
No, it's actually good.
You think that would be pretty good, right?
Yes.
Okay. Electrical arcing sound, can it be heard at a distance?
Yes, it can.
Okay. I have just a couple more questions. You did a full electrical analysis of this taser, is that correct?
Yes.
And was it working in proper working order and working within specifications?
When we received it, the battery pack, the DPM that was received with it, it had enough juice to turn the weapon on with the safety and power the logic boards, but when I pulled the trigger, it generated one pulse and died and went into this constant reset. So for my testing, I replaced the battery. So I tested the weapon with my battery and not the battery that was received with it.
And was there anything about your physical examination of the weapon that would have prevented it from operating within specifications?
No.
Could you please answer any questions, Mr. Savage?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon.
I understand you gotta get out of town pretty quick, so I'll try.
Yeah, I have a flight at 5:50, so I'll be the one running through the airport.
My routine is pretty slow, so I'll try to speed it up. And what I'll try to do is ask you questions for a yes or no so we can get through it.
Sure.
And I understand you are representative of Taser International, which is the manufacturer of tasers. Tasers is an expression like Kleenex. There are other taser companies
That's correct.
that make these electric devices, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you were asked by the State Law Enforcement Division to perform certain functional tests of the taser that's in evidence now.
Correct.
And you did that about 6 months after the incident date, is that correct?
Yes.
And the first thing you did was try to deploy it, and it failed because the electrical charge was not sufficient to carry out the intended use of the taser, is that correct?
Well, first I do the download, and then we do the functional test.
Now, at the time that the functional test was done, could you look at the chip, or whatever that is, the computer chip in the taser, and tell what the level of the battery was at that time?
Yes, you can.
And it was 50% maybe?
Yeah, I think 49.
And the last time that the taser was used in service, how close was it to that number?
I don't have the activation log in front of me. I don't recall what the battery percentage was on that date.
But it would be important to know to ensure that the taser was working properly at the time that it was last used, to know what that battery component was. Is that correct?
That's correct, and I recall it was close, but I don't have a number.
And so during the use of the taser, let's say it was used 6 or 7 times that day, each time it's used, that as time goes on, the use goes on, it drains that battery, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, was there any use of the taser between the time that it was used at this incident until the time you examined it?
None recorded. There were no activations.
I guess it wouldn't be practical to assume that 6 months later it was the same battery percentage as it was 6 months earlier, or can we assume?
The battery percentage comes from a calculation in the code. It's not an actual measurement of the battery. So if the weapon's not used at all, then it would record the same battery percentage.
So the battery percentage that was recorded at the time it was tested would have been the same at the time that it was last used in service?
It should be if it had not been used. Now, it can be armed, and it's not going to record any activations if you don't pull the trigger, but the battery is used by the laser and the flashlight.
And so the comparison of the two would be the same October 6th of 2014 to April 4th of 2014?
Yeah, if it's not used, yeah, it should be the same.
And it was like when you start your car and the radio works, but the engine doesn't crank.
Exactly.
And that's the condition in which you found it when you examined it.
Yes.
Now, this time drift that has been referenced, if I have a watch on, and you have a watch on, and I say I have 22 minutes to 5, the linear time on my watch in 6 minutes should be the same as it is on that clock or your watch in 6 minutes.
Yeah,
So this time drift really doesn't make a whole lot of difference if we're talking about linear time. Is that correct?
Right, like if you're referencing the Denver atomic clock, so 6 minutes will be 6 minutes there.
So in your watch and my watch, 6 minutes will be 6 minutes.
Well, mine could be 5 minutes and 59.3 seconds.
On the Taser in front of you, the linear time would be accurate because it was used 6 times within 2 minutes. So the linear time doesn't have the same drift of 15 minutes or 4 minutes.
It actually does have the same drift, but when you're talking over 2 years versus over 2 minutes, it's negligible amount. But it would be the same drift.
So there's no reason, though, that if somebody wanted to get an accurate time, let's say we had a time, in this case, at the dispatch location where they talk on the radio.
Right.
And we have a time in a e-car video, and a time on a cell phone, and a time in the Taser. By using linear time, we can link all the times together regardless of the trip.
Exactly.
Now, your time was within, 5 seconds? Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe, I don't know the exact number.
So when we're talking about time, and we're talking about somebody who's in a stressful situation, and we're somebody deploying a Taser, I would assume, from your experience has been that that's a stressful situation.
I haven't been under much stress when I do it. I'm not an officer.
But I'm not talking about target practice now. I'm talking about deploying what do you call it, CWP?
CEW.
When the intended use of the manufacture and the distribution of that weapon is for protection, is that correct?
Yes.
And in this situation, police departments is for compliance.
Correct.
And those are stressful situations, no doubt.
Yes, I imagine.
So, in those situations, everything's moving. So the taser's moving, the arm that's holding the taser's moving, the body of the person holding the arm that's holding the taser is moving, the feet are moving, and the other parties moving as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I assume so.
Well, it's not a static situation, but somebody is aiming at a target, as we saw in your picture.
Right.
Everything's fluid.
Right.
In 3 dimensions, correct?
Correct.
Unlike a video which is in 2 dimensions,
Correct.
correct? So a video would not give the same sense of a 3-dimensional movement of the parties involved in that confrontation with the taser. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Now, when you received the taser in October of 2015, did you photograph it?
Yes, I did.
And is your expertise in photography as well as all these other areas you testified to today?
No, I'm an amateur.
But you did that to show the condition, did you not?
Yes.
Of the taser, because that's important to know.
Yes.
To see if it was damaged in transport or, just so that there's some record of the condition of the instrument when you examine it.
Yes,
correct?
that's correct.
And I noticed that you took photographs many photographs of the instrument, including different portions of the instrument. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And are these the photographs that you took?
Yes.
And while I address this with others, would you tell the jury what portion, I guess you can take this out, right?
Yes.
If you want, you can take this out of the bag and show the members of the jury what portions of the taser you photographed.
Those photographs are the front of the weapon, so whenever I spoke about the cartridge, you take the tabs and remove the cartridge. So this is the weapon with the cartridge removed. So the photographs were of the front of the weapon.
What I will do is give these back to you and then we'll put them up on the screen.
Okay.
Judge, when we approach,
Yes.
So looking at defendants 12, 13, and 14, those are photographs of the X-26 instrument that you showed the jury. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And those are the electrical points that you spoke about earlier in terms of that's where the electricity goes through those points, both in the probe mode as well as in the drive center. Is that correct?
That's correct. We call them electrodes.
Your Honor, just to confirm, he is introducing these, I'm assuming.
I'm sorry.
Well, we have no objection.
You're offering those into evidence?
Yes.
What are the exhibit numbers?
12, 13, 14.
Let me see it.
Yes, 12, 13, 14.
Okay. They're admitted without objection.
So with respect to the photographs that the jury can see now, if you would just show them the electrical connections that are.
Sure. So when the weapon's activated, the arc will go from the top electrode to the bottom electrode, like that.
Now, you photographed them when they came into your possession, and did you examine them or trace evidence?
No.
Those electrical connections are sharp, are they not?
No, they're not sharp.
Could they take a piece of fabric if it's rubbed against fabric?
Yeah.
It's sharp enough to, if it was held against somebody's shirt or clothing, moved in a certain way, that they could have a fabric on this activity.
Yeah, I wouldn't call them sharp, but they have a flat edge, so there's an edge to them that could hold fabric.
In fact, you didn't examine or any of that.
No, that's not part of my analysis.
And when you did use that taser, when you deployed it at Taser International, did it arc?
It produced one arc, one single pulse.
And then when you put a new battery in, did you arc it again?
Yes, I did.
And how many times did it arc?
I didn't exactly count them, but it was within spec. It was 17 to 18 pulses per second.
But did you arc it more than once? Did you pull the trigger or however you...
For my testing, the trigger was pulled 3 times.
And when it arcs like that, if there had been any fabric or any trace evidence on there, it could have been destroyed by that electrical spark.
Destroyed by it? Maybe the part touching the electrode, if it's in the path of the arc. But if it's a non-conductive material, it's not going to go through the material and burn it up, if that's what you mean.
Well, the question I have is if there was any trace evidence there, could it have been destroyed when it was arced?
I will say there's a slight possibility that if there was trace evidence in the path of the arc, it could get burnt. But like I said, if it's not conductive, then it would have to be right in the path of that arc.
But the studies that you have done at Taser International say when the taser is on somebody's skin, it burns the skin and leaves a pretty significant mark, does it not?
It can, the repetition of the pulses, yeah, the arc is hot, so yeah, repetition of pulses can burn the skin.
I'm talking about just one time. Drive stunning
Oh.
skin will leave a mark, will it not?
Oh, 1 5-second cycle, yeah, it could leave a mark.
It does leave a mark, not could, does leave a mark, positively leaves a mark, burns the skin.
Right, I thought you were talking about one single pulse, so,
No, I'm
Okay.
talking about somebody who drive stuns somebody.
yes,
It leaves
it'll leave a mark, yes.
a significant mark, and you can tell which is up and which is down because the electrodes are a different size, is that correct?
No, they're the same size.
And they have different, one's positive and one's negative.
Right.
And as a result of arcing, you can tell by the size of the imprint on the skin which is positive and which is negative.
I'm not familiar with that study.
You know that there are studies at Taser International that shows that.
I don't know the results of those studies, but I know there's studies on drive stuns and the marks that they make.
And that has been publicized. I mean, there are publications, scientific journals and books regarding what a taser will do on skin. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Now, was any trace material of somebody's skin found on the taser?
Like I said, that wasn't, examining for trace evidence was not part of my analysis. I wasn't asked to do that.
The analysis that you conducted said that the taser was used 6 or 7 times that day.
That's correct.
And as a result of your analysis, do you know whether there was ever a connection, or there ever was a circuitry connection in any of those uses?
No, we can't tell that from the logs.
So this assumption that has been made about the taser use that day could not be proven by you that it was effective in any way that day.
Yeah, I can't prove effectiveness at all. That can't be. All I can say is the trigger was pulled 7 times that day.
But actually, probes were found, you can examine where the probe is tied to the electrical wire in a knot within the probe. You can see that, is that correct?
There's a couple studies of a couple methods to calculate the duration of actual electricity going through the dart. So if the darts are attached to the person and there is evidence of electricity flowing through the dart, then you can say that electricity flowed through the person. So there's what you were calling, you were talking about it's called the dart knot junction, where they look at the insulation of the wire, and that will melt or burn with the repetition of pulses. So there was a study on using that amount of melting to determine how long electricity was flowing through the wires. There's also another method using an electron microscope and looking at the actual dart where the electricity enters the dart.
I want to show you this object and see if you can identify it.
Yes, that's a taser dart.
Is that the taser dart that would have been deployed on April 4th using the weapon that's in front of you?
It looks like it could be, yeah.
And if you would, you have an objection?
Yes, you're not claiming that that was a dart used by this particular taser, correct?
Oh, yeah, we don't serialize them. I can't say whether that was, I said it could be. It is the style of dart we use in that type of cartridge, but I can't say whether it was used in this case or not.
It is an exemplar we have.
You could have pulled it out of my foam target, and for all I know.
So I want to be careful when I hand this to you, but if you would take a look at the state defendant's exhibit number 15, you indicated that's the type of probe that was used in the X-26 type weapon that you have in front of you.
Yeah, it's actually not in the weapon, it's in the cartridge. So this is what we call an XP probe, which is in the 25-foot cartridge.
And did you take any photographs of the probe?
No, I don't believe I received the probes.
So when SLED sent you the X-26, you weren't sent the components of the X-26. In other words, you didn't get the cartridge doors, you didn't have the aphids or anything else that may have been collected that was used with that weapon.
No, probe analysis is at the actual dart where the electricity enters the dart.
I want to show you this object and see if you can identify it.
Yes, that's a taser dart.
Is that the taser dart that would have been deployed on April 4th using the weapon that's in front of you?
It looks like it could be, yeah.
And if you would, you have an objection?
Yes, you're not claiming that that was a dart used by this particular taser, correct?
Oh, yeah, we don't serialize them. I can't say whether that was, I said it could be. It is the style of dart we use in that type of cartridge, but I can't say whether it was used in this case or not.
It is an exemplar we have.
You could have pulled it out of my foam target, and for all I know.
So I want to be careful when I hand this to you, but if you would take a look at the state defendant's exhibit number 15, you indicated that's the type of probe that was used in the X-26 type weapon that you have in front of you?
Yeah, it's actually not in the weapon, it's in the cartridge. So this is what we call an XP probe, which is in the 25-foot cartridge.
And did you take any photographs of the probe?
No, I don't believe I received the probes.
So when SLED sent you the X26, you weren't sent the components of the X26? In other words, you didn't get the cartridge doors, you didn't have the APHIS or anything else that may have been collected that was used with that weapon?
No, probe analysis is not part of my analysis, so I asked for the weapon and the original battery.
Well, how would you know that the Taser cartridges were effective that day?
I never wrote about effectiveness at all, so I don't know. I can't say I did.
And so all this about the use of the cartridge that day is really an assumption, not based on any scientific evidence. You've been presented as a scientist. There is no scientific evidence of how the Taser was deployed that day, or whether or not an electric current went through those wires that day, or whether or not even the probes were connected such as the arc that day. Is that correct?
Right, mine was a full analysis, which is the download analysis and electrical test.
So up until the point that the weapon was used that day, you have told the jury that you believe it was effective, even though it was ineffective when you received it.
I never told the jury it was effective.
But it had sufficient charge that day to fire?
Oh yeah, it'll fire. That doesn't mean it's effective. I can fire it at something and it won't be effective.
Now, when that probe is deployed, the top probe goes in a straight line, correct?
Correct.
And the bottom probe goes in, did you say 8 degree?
Yes.
So the separation in, say, 10 feet would be what?
I think I know 7 feet is about 12 inches, so probably 14, 15 inches.
And if a probe misses the target and is deployed downrange, if you look at the probe, you can tell that, can you not?
If it hits a hard object, yes, you can.
And if it doesn't hit anything, you can tell that.
If you're doing a probe analysis, you would be able to tell if it missed, probably by doing the probe analysis that you were talking about.
Correct. And if you would look at the probe, that's the electrical wire connected?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So if it goes downrange and misses the target, you can look at the wire and it's stretched out by the weight of the probe and the distance traveled, so it doesn't have all those crinkles in it.
Yes, the wire is folded in an accordion shape, so if the wire just comes out of the cartridge, it'll still hold the accordion shape, but if it gets stretched out, it'll lose that accordion shape.
And that's all scientific analysis, correct?
No, that's correct.
Expert opinions come in and they testify to that.
Yes.
And if you look at that probe, you can look through the little peephole, that little round hole, and you can see the knot that's tied between the wire itself and the probe. You can see that with the human eye.
Yes.
And the jury can see that with their human eye. And that is the area, if there was an electrical connection, if there was a circuit that would carry the electricity, you can look at it and say, oh, there's arc right there.
Yes,
Correct?
that's correct.
Now, were you asked to do that?
No, I was not.
Based on your analysis and your side at any time, this Taser was effective in its use on April 4, 2015?
No, I can't speak of how effective it was.
Or if it was effective at all?
Right.
And of course, we know in the drive-stun mode, everything is fluid. The Taser is fluid, the body is fluid, the recipient is fluid, and you have to have contacts and pretty close to the contacts all the time. Correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Would it be fair to say that all this about the taser is speculation?
Depends on what you're talking about being speculation.
The fact that it was effective at all that day, is there any evidence of that?
Well, let me clear something up. Even doing the knot analysis and looking at the wire and looking at the resistance and how much it melts and all that, doesn't mean it's effective. You could shoot me in the arm at close range, and the wires will do all that. It'll conduct and all that, but it doesn't mean it's effective. I'm going to be frailing and fighting. So effectiveness isn't just the knot junction. It's the entire story put together. So you can't just take one thing and say, oh, it's effective. That tells it it's effective. It just, is there a chance of it being effective?
Is there anything scientific about your examination of the evidence that was provided to you that would indicate that taser affected any pain to anyone that day?
No, I never claimed to say whether it was painful or effective. The only thing I conclude is what the logs say.
Can I ask you questions of the prosecutor?
Think further.
Is that covered? You're not a trace examiner, correct?
Correct.
That's why you didn't do a trace exam.
Exactly.
And secondly, there's no question that the taser was operated for 6 5-second bursts on the day you question.
That's correct.
And I'm assuming since it activated 6 5-second bursts, that the battery was fully operational.
Yes, the battery would have been operational because it logged 6 5-second bursts, the battery was effective, or the battery was operational that day.
Anything further regarding the matters brought out on redirect? All right, thank you, sir. We'll take a short break and see if we can get out here and make it to the airport by 5:55. Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 5 o'clock. I think we've made a day. We're going to recess until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Have a good evening.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Right at 5 o'clock. I'm not going to catch that. I'm still talking about that. Yep. Still restricting it to matters brought out in the on redirect. All right, court come to order for a moment. Are there any matters that we need to address before recessing?
Mr. Durant's concerned about being disenfranchised tomorrow.
Sure. I think the entire clerk's office voted a few weeks ago. When did you vote? Yeah. Because you knew you'd be in trial. Right. Well, obviously I don't want to disenfranchise anyone. What do you all want to do? Stop at 4, stop at 5? We're going to start at 9. They open at 7.
I think 4:30, tomorrow evening, if we're at stop, we do ample time.
All right, we'll plan on that tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Okay, good evening.